Biden D-Day speech. Every time I visit your mom's house, it's D-Day.
That cut corners on military.
All right. Having fun. Having fun. Which one of these two is the D-Day veteran? Isn't it crazy that Biden could literally, like, have been a D-Day veteran if an American GI had flung him at a Japanese guy or something? Like if he's a toddler on D-Day. Yeah. Like if a GI, like, took him and balled him up like a little baby ball and launched him like a fastball and kind of knocked out Japanese. I mean, it could be in the Pacific Theater. You don't know. That was also part of World War II. A lot of people died in the Pacific. Oh, we're having a lot of fun out here today. He was 2 years old on D-Day. That is old enough to be thrown like a ball and injure somebody. The youngest GIs that were 18 are now 98. Well, there were like 14-year-old GIs. With a double cane. My man's a vet. Did you see the vet hug Zelensky? No, but I want to.
Hello, sir. Oh, sorry. Justin Trudeau. Canada. Canadian Prime Minister. Yeah, the Ukrainian Prime Minister is busy fighting right now.
It must be so nice that just because when you were 17 years old, you lied about your age to sign up for the military, you know, like, and now nearly 100 years later, the world leaders are leaning down and being like, yeah, my name is this and his name is this, you know. It's so good.
No. Oh, you're the savior of the people.
Aww.
Here's my eyes. Got a picture.
Yeah, you want a picture?
My wife! Man, that is nice. Neo-Nazis in shambles right now, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Zelensky is literally fighting like a massive ground war to prevent the encroach of a fascist empire. Like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a pretty pointed... Meanwhile, Trudeau got the who are you treatment. Yeah, who the f*** is Trudeau, honestly? Nobody in... Who cares about Trudeau? Get him out of here. Get him out of here. You can't even wrangle in Quebec. Get out of here. Come on. Trudeau was based. Ken the Alan Cook, I already know that you're a liberal. You don't need to keep reminding me. Can you believe Trudeau is 50? Yeah, he's very, very, very handsome. There's no getting around that.
Please welcome the 46th President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
I'm going to take this opportunity to adjust some of my desktop audio settings, so good luck with that.
Last the hour had come. Dawn, 6th of June, 1944. The wind was pounding as it is today, and always has against these cliffs. 225 American Rangers arrived by ship, jumped into the waves and stormed the beach. They could see, all they could see was the outline of the shore and the enormity of these cliffs. And I'd like to look, I know I'll get in trouble with the Secret Service if I go to the edge and look over, but think of those cliffs, as my hostess showed me. That's what we're standing on top of. They could hear, all they could hear was the crack of bullets hitting ships, sand, rocks, hitting everything. All they knew was time was of the essence. In only 30 minutes to eliminate the Nazi guns behind this cliff. Guns that could halt the Allied invasion before it even began. But these were American Rangers. They were ready. They ran toward the cliffs in mines.
Why do governments always do such a horrible job proper audio? They don't hear. It's an outdoor venue. We're literally just hearing the audio being broadcast across speakers. We don't have like another I don't know if the subtitles are
planted on the beach by Field Marshal Rommel. Exploded around them, but still they kept coming. Gunfire rained above them, but still they kept coming. Nazi grenades thrown from above exploded against the cliffs, but still they kept coming. Within minutes, they reached the base of this cliff. They launched their ladders, their ropes, and grappling hooks, and they began to climb. When the Nazis cut their ladders, the Rangers used their ropes. When the Nazis cut their ropes, the Rangers used their hands. And inch by inch, foot by foot, yard by yard, the Rangers literally clawed their way up this mighty precipice until at last they reached the top. They breached this Atlantic Wall, and they turned in that one effort the tide of the war that began to save the world. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I paid my respects at the American Cemetery just a few miles from here, where many of those Rangers who died taking this cliff are buried. I spoke of what the fallen had done to defend freedom. Today, as I look out at this battlefield and all the bunkers and bomb craters that are still surrounded, one thought comes to mind. My God, how did they do it? How were these Americans willing to risk everything, dare everything, and give everything? There were Americans like Sergeant Leonard.
I think one of the biggest differences between the world that exists today and the world that existed back then is I don't think that people really believe in anything or have much hope for anything anymore. Not to say there aren't people willing to give their lives for something. There are. They're just usually in, like, the developing world. In the first world, it seems like we've been sort of subjected to the disappointing practicalities of procedural bureaucracy and of, like, the push and pull of different factions with different versions of shitty ideas without, like, there's not much fuel for it, you know? It's just getting more and more difficult. Because I think a lot of people got really amped up by Bernie, and I still think Bernie is worth the amping, you know? I think a lot of people just have difficulty injecting incredible levels of enthusiasm into a process that is so grinding and inhuman. It's always been grinding and inhuman, I think. It's just easier to see these days. And maybe it's more inhuman now than it used to be. And not in the sense that it's crueler, necessarily, but in the sense that it's more detached and distant from people in their everyday lives. You know? Like, you know, I'm not saying robber baron 19th century Gilded Era capitalism was human or humane or whatever. It wasn't. Only that it was a little more personal in the sense that, you know, at least then if you worked and toiled away in a factory, the factory was probably owned by some guy with a top hat in your town, or at the very least in your state. Nowadays, everything's just like, oh, well, everything's actually owned by this giant anonymous conglomerate of shareholders, and the shareholders are like other companies, and their company's shareholders control their shares on the shares of the shares, and it's like, who controls anything? Who knows what's going on anywhere? It's too complicated, it's too inhuman, it's too impersonal.
Sergeant Leonard Lommel from New Jersey. He was one of the first Rangers to jump off his ship and run toward the cliff. He almost was shot right above the hip initially, and he wasn't sure, but he was. He kept going. At one point, he was scaling the cliff. Another Ranger yelled, "I'm not sure I can make it." And Lommel yelled back with every ounce of strength he had in him, "You've got to hold on." And he did, and they did. Americans like Sergeant Tom Ruggiero from Massachusetts. A German shell hit his boat as he was approaching the shore. Everything exploded. The sergeant was knocked into the freezing water. And as he told it, he began to utter a prayer. "Dear God, don't let me drown. I want to get in and do what I'm here and supposed to do. Americans like Colonel James Rudder, Texas. When the military asked for a battalion for this daring mission, he raised his hand and said, "My Rangers can do the job." He knew their capacity. He knew the strength of their character. A few days after they scaled this cliff, he wrote a condolence letter to a mother of one of the Rangers who gave his life here. And that letter said, "A country must be great.
That wasn't me.
The sacrifice of such
That
men.
wasn't me.
A country must be great to call for the sacrifice of such men." And Americans like John Wardell from New Jersey. John is here. John, we love you, man. Thank you for all you've done.
They fixed the mic. They switched the audio source, but it's terrible for me.
Deserve that and a lot more, John. Just 18 years old, he deployed to this cliff to replace the surviving Rangers on that D-Day invasion. He would go on to fight across France and Germany. In early December 1944, during one of those battles, shrapnel pierced his skull. But by Christmas, he was back, fighting with his unit. And here's what he said about what the notes he kept at that time. He said, "Knowing that my buddies and I always looked out for one another. That's why he came back. That's why he fought so hard to get back. He always looked out, and his buddies looked out for one another." When we talk about democracy, American democracy, we often talk about the ideals of life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What we don't talk about is how hard it is. How many ways we're asked to walk away, how many instincts are to walk away. The most natural instinct is to walk away, to be selfish, to force our will upon others, to seize power, never give up. American democracy asks the hardest of things, to believe that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. So democracy begins with each of us. It begins when one person decides there's something more important than themselves.
This
when they
audio,
decide,
man.
The person they're serving alongside of.
And for me, yes, YouTube is shitting itself, guys. You just said you don't need to make the entire chat that. I can't help the YouTube thing. OBS is fine. I'll let you know if OBS ever drops out or whatever, you know. But for the most part, it's just like, YouTube's being shit, you know.
There's someone to look after. When they decide the mission matters more than their life. When they decide that their country matters more than they do. That's what the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc did. That's what they decided. That's what every soldier and every Marine who stormed this beaches decided. A feared dictator had conquered a continent, had finally met his match. Because of them, the war turned. They stood against Hitler's aggression.
Hitler's.
Does anyone doubt that they would want America to stand up against Putin's aggression here in Europe today? They stormed the beaches alongside our allies. Does anyone believe these Rangers would want America to go it alone today? They fought to vanquish a hateful ideology in the 30s and 40s. Does anyone doubt they wouldn't move heaven and earth to vanquish hateful ideologies of today? These Rangers put mission and country above themselves. Does anyone believe they would exact any less from every American today?
The real difficulty with this, ideologically, I think, is just the fact that almost everything that he's describing right now, genuinely, on some level, could be used and applied to Hamas. Like, the threat, the overwhelming threat of the annihilation of your people. I mean, not to speak of Hamas being like a perfect organization, but if you want to go there, it's not like there weren't tons of anti-Semites among American GIs. It's not like the American attitude towards minorities at the time was phenomenal. And like, I agree, I'm simplifying a lot of points here. I don't want to imply there's a direct one-to-one comparison, but if you're talking fundamentally about the, like, the willingness to put your life on the line to oppose an existential threat, then Hamas is a one-to-one match. You know, it's an inconsistent application of these virtues. It speaks to the same inconsistency that you see with, like, the White House praising Ukraine for using whatever measures are necessary to repel Russia, but at the same time going like, you know, Hamas should not have used violence, blah blah blah, you know.
These Rangers remembered with reverence those who gave their lives in battle. Could they or anyone ever imagine that America would do the same, wouldn't do the same? They believed America was a beacon to the world. I'm certain they believed that it would be that way forever. You know, we stand today, where we stand was not sacred ground on June the 5th, but that's what it became on June the 6th. The Rangers who scaled this cliff didn't know they would change the world, but they did. I've long said that history has shown that ordinary Americans can do extraordinary things when challenged. There's no better example of that in the entire world than right here at Pointe du Hoc. Rangers from farms and cities in every part of America, from homes that didn't know wealth and power. They came to a shoreline that none of them would have picked out on a map. They came to a country many of them had never seen, for a people they had never met. But they came. They did their job. They fulfilled their mission. And they did their duty. They were part of something greater than themselves. They were Americans. I stand here today as the first president to come to Pointe du Hoc when none of those 225 brave men who scaled this cliff on D-Day are still alive. None. But I'm here to tell you that with them gone, the wind we hear coming off this ocean will not fade. It will grow louder as we gather here today. It's not just to honor those who showed such remarkable bravery on that day, June 6, 1944. It's to listen to the echoes of their voices, to hear them, because they are summoning us.
Just glorification of submission to the nation and being expendable as an individual. This is proto-fascist nonsense. I think that's ridiculous cynicism. You could praise this from a communist perspective easily. The ability to sacrifice your life for something greater than you is not like purely a fascist. This isn't about sublimation to the state. He's not talking about them sacrificing themselves for American glory. They're talking about like the American spirit contributing to their willingness to sacrifice themselves in the service of something greater. I don't care to like, you know, I don't want to. Like, imagine what rhetoric they must apply in like Rojava, or what the Soviets must have applied when they were marching on Berlin, right? I don't think that's the case. Now, obviously, everything is given a darker context here. And by the way, how's my audio? I adjusted some of the audio settings to ideally reduce peaking now, so there are now 2 compressors rather than it hitting the one. You sound good? You sound good? Okay.
They're summoning us now. They ask us, what will we do? They're not asking us to scale these cliffs, but they're asking us to stay true to what America stands for. They're not asking us to give or risk our lives, but they are asking us to care for others in our country more than ourselves. They're not asking us to do their job. They're asking us to do our job, to protect freedom in our time, to defend democracy, to stand up aggression abroad and at home, to be part of something bigger than ourselves. My fellow Americans, I refuse to believe, I simply refuse to believe that America's greatness is a thing of the past. I still believe there's nothing beyond our capacity in America when we act together. We're the fortunate heirs of a legacy of these heroes, those who scale the cliffs, Pointe du Hoc. But we must also be the keepers of their mission. The keepers of their mission, the bearers of the flame of freedom that they kept burning bright. That is the truest testimonial to their lives. Our actions every day to ensure that our democracy endures.
Speeches like this really show how American exceptionalism lies well. Okay, guys, just to be clear, okay? This is like a very standard memorial speech right here. You could hear stuff like this from basically any leader of any nation. I just want to contextualize this for you, okay? American exceptionalism isn't the president saying like the can-do American spirit, etc., etc. This is a pretty normal speech, like any other leader would do something. Like, this is fully in line with what you would expect in this situation, you know? You know, I think you guys are being cynical about the wrong thing. I think the cynicism here should be directed to the fact that this is inconsistent and hypocritical considering our treatment of Israel. The fact that we are enabling the, you know, the fascist imperialist settler colonial state in its oppression of a minority group. In terms of like the speech itself, this is a pretty standard, like we memorialize our heroes who blah, blah, blah. We saw a version of this in Portugal, the Carnation Revolution, just a little while ago, remember? We saw the veterans of the peaceful, woke military revolution like going down the street in 70s military vehicles, and they were like, you know, it's the Portuguese spirit, da-da-da, like it's fine, you know, whatever. For me, it's the inconsistency. I disagree. I think we should eat cement. That's a good argument, too.
And the soul of our nation endures. To come here, simply to remember, the ghosts that point to Hawk isn't enough. We need to hear them. We have to listen to them. We need to listen to what they had. We need to make a solemn vow to never let them down. God bless the fallen. God bless the brave men who scaled these cliffs. May God protect our troops. God bless America.
That'll have to do. It is windy up there. Yeah, that's the ghosts from Normandy breathing really hard. A Scottish lord in the British Army used his historic right to have a bagpiper with him to storm the beaches on D-Day. That poor bagpiper. Lord Lovat exercised his right as chief of Clan Fraser, to have a personal piper accompany him in the vanguard of the D-Day landings. Pipers were by then no longer allowed at the front line of the British Army. Hell yeah, man. I hope the bagpiper was like down with that. Isn't it crazy that America has been in such a perpetual war that a presidential slogan is "God protect our troops"? Well, no. Biden says that specifically because of his son. He says that like that's a family thing for him. He's been saying that for ages, you know? Yeah, Beau Biden. Nobody names their kid Beau anymore.